Octo Expansion released almost 6 years ago and was, and debatably still is, the best Splatoon campaign. And with its 6-year anniversary this June and side order releasing this month, I thought I should go back and look at Octo Expansion to see if it really is the best Splatoon single player has to offer. So I played it all again recently, and this is a video being made out of that. I have procrastinated this video for way too long. Also, if you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing. I'd like to try to hit 500 subs by the end of the month, and all I can really ask is for you to help me out, maybe. But either way, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy. Let's start off with the beginning of Octo Expansion. The previous two campaigns both followed a similar structure of the sapfish being stolen, plus Callie in 2, and you being a young inkling being roped in as the new agent to help get them back. Octo Expansion is like the complete opposite tone-wise. You're an Octoling that was previously battling Agent 3 in Octo Valley before someone attacked you in 3. And then you wake up in the deep sea metro with amnesia next to an old man who most likely dated that crusty DJ you killed twice already. After this, you go further into the subway and find a telephone which speaks to you like he's from an exaggerated 80s? 90s? I'm not entirely sure, but he tells you about the Promised Land, and to reach it you must find the 4 Thangs. So you go off with Cuttlefish to do some tests and get those Thangs. Also, you're named Test Subject 10008, so Cuttlefish just calls you Agent 8. Oh, and also you got the best couple Splatoon has to offer on the radio, and they'll be here to have nice little chats with you and Cuttlefish on your journey. How kind of them to take time out of their marriage planning to help us, isn't it? Also, one thing I gotta mention is the customization. You get the normal Splatoon 2 choices of male and female, then have 2 hairstyles for each. I would have liked more than just 2, but the ones that are here are pretty good. I really like the ponytail one. It's really nice, so I like ponytails. Also, you start off in like test tubes or something. I don't know why. There's probably some Splatoon lore something about it, and people know the answer. I don't really know. Or like it's really obvious and I'm just stupid. I don't know. And that's the setup. You find yourself on one of the trains in the metro, using it to get around to these tests so you can find the 4 Thangs. And unlike in the other campaigns, there isn't really a hub world of sorts. Just this train, which is different sea creatures spawning on it every time you come back. How fun. But back to the structure, you just use a menu to navigate a map to select which test to go to. Now, to some people, the lack of a hub world could seem like a downgrade. But honestly, I think it really works for Octo Expansion, and that's just because how the levels in the DLC are played out. A lot of them are just short tests that you go through fairly quickly, so honestly it'd feel kind of weird searching around the hub looking for a level, finding one, and it's just a short minute-long break the targets level from Smash. Splatoon 3 story mode does that though. Anyway, each level has a different objective. You've got some traditional levels like reach the end of the goal of the level, which can be a bit similar to the older campaigns, but we've got variety in our Splatoon game now, so we've got all sorts of fun stuff like, I don't know, break the targets, guide the 8-ball to the goal, and defeating all the enemies. I think that's it. I don't know. I could be wrong. But either way, that may not seem like a lot because we've also got different things attached to these goals, such as only being allowed to use curling bombs, or like only having a limited amount of ink in your tank, and way more that I can't remember. But there's more I could go on to mention. And honestly, I'm a big fan of all this. I think if we just got another story mode filled with just get to the goal style levels and nothing more, I think everybody would start getting tired of the campaigns in these games. So it's great this is keeping things fresh and letting the team like get more creative with what kind of levels are being made. And honestly, I think it's even better than the team are doing something different for side order. They're just doing these structures and moving on to the new one before the current one gets too stale or too repetitive, which is honestly I think is quite nice. We're talking about some of the objectives. Get to the goal are pretty good levels. They're mostly standard levels, but a lot of them tend to have those extra parts thrown into them, so they're all pretty good honestly. Defeating all the enemies kind of feels like the developers at some point really struggled to figure out ways to place these enemies in different locations, so some of them feel kinda random, but they're alright. And the 8-ball levels are pretty alright too, I don't mind them. I know a lot of people hated the 8-ball levels, at least when the DLC first came out, but I always thought they were fine. I never really got the over-extreme hate everyone had for them. Though I will say, I do think it's insane that at some point they had planned an 8-ball ranked mode at some point, and I'm so glad they never went through with that, because definitive worst game mode in the game, can't believe it, they made it. At least, actually never mind, they didn't make it. You know what I mean. Another thing I wanted to say is just some of my favorite levels are just the ones where you get to use specials infinitely, like the Inkjet and Baller levels, because I just think they're really fun, and I like them, and they're awesome. And I also think I should be able to do that in multiplayer. I think I should be able to use these specials infinitely in multiplayer, please. You know, I bought the DLC, I deserve some compensation. Please let me do that, please. Also, once you beat a level, you get this little thing called a mem cake, and they're just these little thingies that I have no clue what they're meant to be. I think they're erasers, but they're like these little memory things, and they all look like different things, and like a bunch of different things from Splatoon 2, like shopkeepers and Octarians and salmon run enemies. They also have little poems to go with them, which I just think is kind of neat. They're just neat little things, I think. And another thing about the levels in this campaign is some of these levels can be pretty difficult if you're not a big pro gamer who loves gaming while they game. The original story modes were never the hardest things ever. I could even call them pretty easy, honestly. And Octo Expansion gives a nice bit of difficulty to the series that we hadn't seen yet. It's not like this DLC is the most difficult thing you'll ever play, but it's like a decent challenge on your first playthrough. What's also just kind of a neat thing in the game is you actually have a kind of indicator for what levels are the harder ones, and which are the easier ones, and that's by reading letters. Depending on what line in the train station the level is, it depends on how difficult the level is. Like, kind of. It's kind of a vague difficulty thing. Sometimes they don't always match up, but for the most part, that's how they're set up. So things on the A line are the easiest levels, all the way down to J, which are always the hardest ones, and they're the big bad levels you don't want to see on the side of the road. Though, I will say, I remember Octo Expansion being a lot more difficult when I played it nearly 6 years ago. Like, I beat Girl Power Station on my first try, and something else later on didn't take that long. This could be for multiple reasons. Maybe it's because I've played all these levels before, and even though it's been so long, I still kind of remember them. But it could also be the fact that I was a lot younger when Octo Expansion released, and so I maybe just was a stupid child who was bad at games. Probably a combination of both, honestly. But either way, I'd much rather have this level of difficulty than the difficulty of every other campaign. Hi, I'm currently halfway through editing this, and I forgot to mention something about levels, and that's that if you die enough times on a level, Marina pretty much tells you skill issue, and can just auto-complete the level for you. If you do this, the level will however have a little icon on the map to show that you skipped it. I don't think I actually have any footage of this, and I really don't want to start another playthrough of Octo Expansion to get it. Oh, and there's also just a feature where you can get into debt with Pearl. I'm not going to explain this feature. I'm just going to mention it's there. Anyway, back to whatever I was on about. A complaint I do have about the levels is the lack of any collectibles in them, no sardinium, no sunken scrolls or anything like them. The most you'll get for going to an out-of-place area is a bunch of fish eggs that are like just used for getting into more levels or another thing once you beat the game. I know a lot of these levels aren't built to have collectibles in them, but there are still a decent number of them that they could have put some form of collectible into, maybe to unlock the message logs, which I will talk about later. And while I'm on about complaints, I might as well mention my other main complaint with the campaign, and that is the boss fights. 4 of the bosses are set out just like any other test and are just on the lines, which honestly I think is fine, but all the bosses are just harder versions of the bosses from Space Splatoon 2. Octo Oven and Octo Stomp are pretty much just the same fight, but with more projectiles, maybe some enemies sprinkled in. But at least the Octo Shower and the Octo Samurai both force you to fight them using specials with the Inkjet and Baller respectively. And you know, I do like these ones with the specials, they do add something to the fight, but the other two that just add random projectiles and random stuff, yeah, no. I don't love those ones, honestly. I don't really know when to put this segment in the video, but I just want to talk about the music because, my god, the music is really, really good for this DLC. And it's probably my favorite soundtrack out of all the campaigns, if I'm being honest. I know, unique opinion, never heard it before. I think a majority, if not all the music, apart from the ending segments music, is on In-Universe by Deadfish, or as we now know them thanks to Side Order, Act. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how to say their name. So I'm just gonna stick with Deadfish from now on, until I learn how to speak words. Maybe I'll learn once Side Order comes out. Who knows? But I hope Deadfish is doing all the music for Side Order as well, or at least a segment of it, because that would be great. I love this music. It's great. Listen to the soundtrack. It's fantastic. Oh my god, I love it. One more thing I think I should talk about is the chat logs that you can read throughout Octo Expansion. You unlock these just as you beat certain levels, and for playing those levels, you get to read some fun conversations between Pearl, Marina, and Cuttlefish. Now, I don't have much to say about the chat logs themselves, other than just kind of them being really neat and cute, and allowing Pearl and Marina to get more time in the spotlight, which I think is really nice and was kind of needed, because all you've really got was their conversations in the news. These chat logs honestly add so much more to their character, like stuff about Marina's backstory and how the two originally met. I'm also fairly sure these chats confirm that Pearl and Marina do in fact wake up together, so congrats on them for moving in together, that's a big step. But yeah, these are just neat. I like them. I kinda wish we got something similar to this for Deep Cut in Splatoon 3, but sadly we didn't. But I at least think these chat logs made it just so Pearl and Marina are my overall favourite idol group. I think I've mentioned a majority of what I thought, so let's get to the finale, and I'm going to talk about every section here, even if it's extremely brief. Once you go around all the lines of the subway and find all the 4 things, which do not look like parts of any machine you may use in a kitchen, what do you mean? You can speak to the telephone and you'll be able to start the process of ascending into the promised land. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, after you get 3 things, you get to customize your own Agent 3, isn't that nice? I'm sure that won't play a part in what happens during the story though. I think it's just a nice customization thing you get to do. But either way, the telephone does some funky junky stuff and they create the gate to the promised land. It is not like a blender. It doesn't, I don't know what you mean. So you enter the gate to the promised land with cuttlefish, and then by a shocking plot twist, the telephone was actually bad and was going to use the blender to blend both 8 and cuttlefish into sanitized goo. So yeah, all those Octarians you were fighting this whole time were actually made up of goo made up of the blended up previous test subjects. Yay! How lovely. But anyway, right before you get blended, Marina sends out a distress signal, and here comes Agent 3 from the sky and breaks the blender and save the both of you. Also getting knocked out in the process. But either way, you decide to go on without them and super jump through the hole they made to the final segment of the game, where you go through different phases of this ginormous facility thing to finally escape. And you know what? I really like this segment. It certainly is better done in this than the same thing they did in Splatoon 3 in my opinion. But either way, you start off with a segment where you don't have a gun, so you have to sneak through everywhere, which, you know, I really enjoyed this, even though it's quite short. And I messed it up in this footage somehow. I don't know. Maybe I'm just terrible. Then you go to a segment where you have to go find your gun and bombs, and this big flying Octo Stomp thing, I don't know the name. It just annoyed me a lot because I couldn't climb this wall, so I hate this guy. That's all I have to say about this segment. And then there's this area where you climb all over these cuboid cage things, and I think this is where the sanitized Octarians are made, I think. I'm not too sure. After that we get this like laser dodging area where we get to hear over the radio a bit of a complication going on with Agent 3 and Cuttlefish. But you know it's probably nothing. They're probably completely fine. Next we get this neat little inkjet segment where you have to collect all the data thingies, I don't know the name of them, which is fun because I get to use the inkjet infinitely, and I'm never going to pass up on that. All of this to unleash this little guy, this little friend. But now you must protect him at all costs on this moving platform with anything and everything trying to shoot you, and shoot your little guy, and if he dies, you die, and you probably deserve it, because you didn't protect him. How could you? But if you make it to the end, with the little friend plugs into the power, the elevator I think? I don't know. I just think the little guy, I like him. I just like the little guy, and off you go to the final segment. You arrive to an elevator, and that's all it is. Just an elevator. Hey, whatever happened to Cuttlefish in 3? Oh, there you are! And now we're fighting, alright. So here we have Agent 3, who I think has been partially sanitized by the telephone, which is why they're all mean and angry now. And in this boss fight, 3 is throwing everything they've got at you, all their bombs and all these different specials. And this boss fight is really easy, that ended quicker than I thought it would. Oh well, at least it means we can climb up this stupidly tall ladder to escape. Wait, why was there an elevator if you're just gonna have a really long ladder anyway? And also, what about 3 and Cuttlefish? Either way, we climb the ladder and see the beautiful sunset over the ocean. The first time 8 is seeing the outside world in God knows how long. And then the girls arrive to save us, amen. And we get on their helicopter platforms with them to finally leave. Oh, and then the entire facility we just went through starts rising from the ocean, and it's a giant human statue, and the telephone is there, and his name is Commander Tartar, created by the same professor as Judd's owner, but that's no big deal. But I should probably talk about it. Tartar has looked upon Inklings and Octolings and said we honestly aren't worth it, and wants to destroy us all so we can just have his new life form take over. And we don't want that, so Marina devises a plan to cover the statue in ink using her hyper bombs, and then Pearl will, I don't know, scream at it. So we jump onto the statue and start, like, going everywhere and blowing up hyper bombs as they come towards us. And probably my favorite boss fight in the series, with one of my personal favorite tracks in the series playing in the background. I mean, who could ever hate Fly Octo Fly? Like, this is amazing. I just love the scale of this entire boss fight, and, like, I don't know how to describe it. I just love this boss fight. But, like, once the 3 minutes are up, the statues have been fully painted by the hyper bombs. Tartar still wants to kill us all, so he's about to fire the big death laser anyway. So Pearl does what she does best and gets out a massive killer whale, and Booyah's back for once, thank god, which somehow creates the greatest killer whale to ever exist, overpowering Tartar's laser and destroying that stupid telephone once and for all. I'm assuming he dies at the end to be honest, I'm not entirely sure if he's fully dead. He probably is dead. I'm just gonna go with that he's dead. And that's it. The credits roll, with this amazing shot of 8, Cuttlefish, Pearl and Marina on their way back to Inkopolis, with also probably my favourite credit song in the series. It's just a great shot and a great ending. But we're not done yet. I still have one last thing to talk about. If you complete every single level in Octo Expansion, you unlock the secret final boss, Inner Agent 3. We finally get a boss fight where it feels where 3 can finally fight back, unlike the last one. Now, this boss fight is kind of known for being really difficult. I'm not sure how long this is going to take me. Okay, I beat it in 3 attempts. I should also probably talk about the actual fight. Phase 1 just starts off by shooting and throwing auto bombs, but for some reason they also have souped up auto bombs from Satan himself to attack you. I'm not sure what they put in these things. Also, apparently they use inkjet in this phase, but I don't remember seeing that, so I don't know. During Phase 2 they start using the bubble blower, which can be kind of annoying, but not too bad. Phase 3 has them using my worst nightmare, the auto bomb launcher from hell, to make me run for my life and never return. Anyway, Phase 4 they just jump onto a platform and start shooting tenta missiles at you. You know what? I actually hate Agent 3. They are very mean actually, you know, after that, I just don't like them very much after all this. And finally, Phase 5, they just start spamming splashdowns, and I bet you could probably splashdown cancel them. I don't know, I didn't try it. Overall, the boss is pretty good, even though I beat it in 3 tries, you know. I mean, I remember it being a lot harder back in 2018, but even though I didn't have much trouble with it this time, it's still a decent challenge for a first time round, and it's just a pretty good boss, and definitely the hardest boss in the game, and probably the hardest boss in the series, still, so it does its job. And that's Octo Expansion, finally. This is definitely still, in my opinion, the best Splatoon campaign we currently have. It's just really everything about it. The story, the music, the structure, the level design, it's all so good and I love it. But who knows, maybe Sidor is going to swoop in and take that title of the best. Thank you for watching to the end of the video if you did. I have procrastinated making this video for so long, and this is going to take me hours and hours to edit. It's going to take me so long. But I'm glad I finally got around to it. If you enjoyed, please consider liking and subscribing, and I don't know, maybe give your thoughts on Octo Expansion. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed. I am very tired. It is 8 AM. I haven't slept because I was writing this script. Bye.